And welcome back to GB News Live. Now, Rishi Sunak has arrived in Bali ahead of a two-day summit where he'll be holding talks with other leaders from some of the world's largest economies. Also, the first encounter between a British Prime Minister and a Russian representative since the invasion of Ukraine back in February. But reports suggest that Russia's Foreign Minister, Sergei Lavrov, has been treated for a heart condition after being admitted to hospital upon arriving there. Russia denying those claims, showing these pictures of him at his hotel room by a swimming pool, saying that the claims were false. Well, the Prime Minister will use the summit as an opportunity to criticise Vladimir Putin's acts of terror, hoping to force Russia to confront the suffering caused by the invasion. Let's cross live now to our political correspondent Tom Harwood, who's in Downing Street. Tom, what are we making of these claims that he had to be rushed to hospital and treated for a heart condition? Russia sort of putting these pictures out of him relaxing by the swimming pool at the hotel.
Yes, it's all very strange. Of course, this morning the Associated Press said that they had three separate sources from Indonesia saying that that Sergei Lavrov had been admitted to hospital. Two of those three sources, according to Associated Press, were saying it was due to a heart condition. But only a few minutes later, the Russians were putting out their own story saying that that was not true at all, that in fact Sergei Lavrov was fit and well, and like all the rumours around Vladimir Putin's health, these rumours around Sergei Lavrov's health were unfounded and untrue too. Now, I have to say that for the British government's perspective, they are not revealing if they know any more information about this. They're not saying that they do. There may well be more information about this to come later today from teams in the ground in the G20, but I've just been speaking with the Prime Minister's official spokesman, and it has to be said that everyone seemed a little bit flummoxed.
Learning the Kremlin actually has issued a statement saying it's fake news, but of course it's said that about a lot of other things recently. But the significance of this, of course, we understand that Rishi Sunak was not going to pull his punches, accusing Russia of being a rogue state.
Yes, to some extent this G20 is an opportunity really for the government to try and get back on the front foot when it comes to communications, because of course the G20 is an organisation of which Russia is a member, one of the few international forums where Russia still participates, even though the president of Russia, of course, Vladimir Putin, is not attending. His foreign minister, Sergei Lavrov, is instead. But really what the British government has been doing in terms of its messaging around this meeting of heads of nations is to try and emphasise that the global issues that many countries around the world are facing right now, the US, the EU, the UK in particular, are due to and as a consequence of Russia's brutal invasion of Ukraine, the energy crisis that's tipping much of the world into recession right now, and indeed the food crisis for the global south, all to do with that war in Ukraine. And really what I expect the Prime Minister will be saying time and time again over the next 3 days at this summit in Bali is just how many of these problems are a consequence of this war in Ukraine, and how important it is to bring this war to a conclusion, to a victory for Ukraine as soon as possible.
Yeah, and it is his first time, of course, on the international stage as leader. And we understand that he will be pushing this economic agenda to try and reduce the world's reliance on Russian oil and gas, effectively trying to isolate the country, I suppose.
Yes, and of course it's easier for the British government to say something like this when so little of our gas comes from Russia, and indeed so little of our oil too. Of course, much harder for countries like Germany that have been very, very slow on weaning themselves off Russian imports. So yes, there's a bit of a tension there perhaps in the Western alliance. The United States, Canada and Britain much more in favour of saying that Russian imports of these things should be scaled back and stopped in a shorter time frame, whereas many continental European countries have a different point of view.